If you're a Canadian, you have to love Saturday nights in Georgia. The immortal call from the late, great Don Whitman, punctuating that special late July night in Atlanta when Donovan Bailey won gold in 1996. A world record, 984 on that night. If you're Canadian, you have to love Saturday nights in Georgia, Mr. Bailey. When you hear that again, what comes flooding back to you?
Well, the first thing is that I miss Don Whitman. That's the first thing. He's iconic, legendary commentator and announcer for Canada and for the world of track and field. So it actually makes me miss him. But also what it does, it allows me to reflect on life and success and accomplishment and being able to share an incredible moment with track and field fans around the world, especially Canadians.
Donovan, let's get right to the news of this week. We had Mark Tewksbury on a couple of days ago, and the way I kind of presented it to him was the Olympics have been postponed / canceled 3 times ever. 1914, 1940, 1944. It took World War I and World War II for the Olympics to be on pause. What do you make of the times we now live in for the 4th time to happen in our lifetime, present day, for nobody to be going to Tokyo later this summer?
Well, I mean, first of all, I've been trying to put these things into words for the last few days, and you kind of recognize, as you just said, all the times that the Olympics have been canceled before. This is, I've never been through a world war, but if there is such a thing, if there is a world war, it's the one we're going through right now.
Donovan, how would you have handled this if you were an athlete? You've been working your whole life towards something, and now this happens. Can you go back in time and think about how you would approach this?
Well, you know what? I think that every athlete, you essentially have to adjust to whatever situation that you're in. If you're training for, in my case, the 100 meters, and it rains that day, then you have to be focused on ensuring that you adjust to that. But I can't see how it is that you could possibly adjust to this because, I sent a text to David Shoemaker from the COC for making an incredible call. Just putting the athletes at ease, letting them know that they really don't need to, risk their own lives, risk their families' lives to get out there and train. Because essentially, I think that, the average person is kind of understanding now how an athlete trains. When an athlete is involved in a sport, and that sport is the Olympic Games, which is the pinnacle of all sports, it simply means that they live, eat, breathe that event. And essentially what we all have to do right now as humans is to live and breathe life. Because, anything you do, anywhere you go, anything you touch could result in death and essentially in some ways that's in a very minuscule way that is the life of an Olympian.
So let's talk about Andre de Grasse here, Donovan, because obviously, you're the greatest sprinter this country has ever produced, you and Percy Williams, and now Andre is the next generation coming up. You guys exist on 4-year cycles, the quadrennial leading into an Olympics. Now, Andre is one of the lucky athletes. He has the means that he can still train the way he wants to. He can have his own facility. He can run. He can lift. He can do all those things. How now do you prepare for an Olympic Games when you don't know what the date is? When your 4-year window has now been extended to be announced, and you want to have your body in the right shape and the right opportunity to go out and deliver. How do you now approach this if you're a kid like Andre?
Well, I can't speak for Andre, but obviously I've been in a situation where you're getting ready for the games. Um, the great thing about a call being made by the COC that they were not going to send a team is that Andre, whatever injuries that he might have, he can get treatment for that. Well, obviously, as soon as the virus runs its course, he can essentially rest for the rest of this year, and then start tearing down his body and rebuilding it to peak for 2021. And he obviously got to start that in the fall. I'm very certain that the World Championships, the World Track and Field Championships, were scheduled to be in July, basically this around the same time as the Olympics was supposed to be this year. So I'm assuming we don't know that yet. I don't really know that yet. I mean, obviously, we're hearing just discussions as things go on that the Olympics might be around the time when the World Championships are. For him, I'm very certain that he's taken the opportunity, one, to heal his body, two, to kind of wind down what it is that he's doing this year, and essentially start to rebuilding and plan for the indoor season next year, and then to kind of get his bearings and start on getting ready for the outdoor championships, which would have been anyways, for the outdoor championships, which will now be the Olympics in 2021.
We had heard a lot about Andre before Rio, Donovan. I think it was there that he really put himself on the map. 3 events, the 100, the 200, the 4x1, medaling in each of them. Obviously, Usain Bolt is in his way. And now Usain Bolt is gone. It's been a tough road for Andre since Rio, though. Injuries and the coaching change. He's had to start and restart again, so to speak. Now as we look ahead to Tokyo, and whenever these Olympics are going to be, it has appeared that the 200 may be more of his event than the 100. Can you explain to our audience how that can be, that somebody who runs the 100 and runs it well may actually rely on the 200 a little more than the 1? What's the difference there, and how does that evolve? How does that become that way?
Well, my only assessment could be that Andre's, every time, like every cycle, every few years, everyone's trying to determine what the perfect body of a power sprinter is, or as opposed to speed endurance. The 100 meters is all raw power, and obviously the 200 meters, it's raw power, but obviously you need some speed endurance to go with that. And Andre is at 5'7", 5'8", 140 pounds. 150 pounds. He definitely is very fuel efficient, I guess we'll say. So I think that the 200 meters might be his better race. And with him and Aaron, actually, they both can run very good 200 meters, and they certainly can use the 100 meters for power speed. But I think that I wouldn't stop Andre from running the 100. I wouldn't stop either one of those athletes from doing both events. But Andre definitely, from his ability to hit top speed and maintain top speed, is quite good. And he's not going to be in Tokyo. I don't know if even the Olympics is going to be in Tokyo next year. But the 200 definitely seems like a better race for him.
You mentioned Aaron. That's Aaron Brown, another Canadian sprinter. He was part of the 4x100 team in Rio that won bronze back in 2016. Okay, man, let's get to it, Donovan. Andre, if the 200 is his thing, he's not going to be the fastest man on earth if he doesn't win the gold at the Olympics, right? I mean, running 19.32 in the 200 doesn't make you the fastest man on the planet, does it?
It doesn't actually.
No?
It doesn't. Well, in Atlanta, 22 miles an hour apparently was way faster than 28. Apparently. Yeah.
Apparently.
Right.
And the 150-meter run determines what, other than somebody being a chicken? What does that determine for us?
Well, fortunately for me, it was really a good financial windfall.
Sure.
It wasn't meant to be a race. It wasn't going to be a race from my perspective, and probably from Dan, my coach Dan, and my training partner, because essentially the race was over in the first 3 meters.
Donovan, so often when I speak with athletes and, you ask them about legacy and moments and how you think about history, they say, I'm not thinking about it now. I'm in the moment. I'm competing. I'm thinking about the next race and whatever. They say years from now, when I'm sitting back and reflecting, that's when I'll think about all of this and what all of this means. We all have nothing but time right now around the world. The world is on pause right now.
That's
next summer will be the 25th anniversary of Atlanta. When you take a moment now to reflect, now that you have this time, now that the milestone is coming, now that the next great Canadian sprinters are on the way, when you think back to Atlanta, what stands out to you? What do you reflect most upon? What that meant to you and what you think that meant to the country?
Wow. Well, that's a little bit to unpack. Well, you know what? The first thing is, I think that when I look back at it, I mean, I spent a lot of time with friends who are really close to me.
Yeah.
And as I reflect, Atlanta was a time. It's almost like now in this crisis. Atlanta was a time that a whole bunch of my friends packed up from Calgary, Toronto, Oakville, and got on planes, buses, cars to come down and watch me compete. So it really was a time for family. I mean, I got to see my father cry for the first time. So that's one of those things. I mean, and he's passed now. So those are memories that always conjure up great emotions. Secondly, I mean, I think that, it's a time that, track and field, amidst all its dark shadows, was a time of celebration, because the business model of the IOC and the IAAF is that you train and you go on the track and compete against people with your God-given talent. And I did all that, broke the world record, drug-free, and I'm extremely proud of that. So when I think about those things, I think about how it is that it was done. Thirdly, I think it was a time where we weren't afraid of anyone, and I led by example with my individual titles, but more importantly, I got back. I took a day's rest between whatever my individual titles were in any given year, and went back and said to the fellas, "Listen, we're gonna go and dominate the other teams that are out there. Better yet, there's no other teams out there. We're number one." And everyone's got to play a role, and we're going to go out there and win. And so the relay team was, 6 years in a row we're the number one team on the planet, and lost to no one. So I'm quite happy about that. Definitely quite happy.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about the relay, because look, as impressive, as amazing, as incredible as the 984 was and the gold medal was, I think about great rivalries in sport. The Yankees and the Red Sox, the Lakers and the Celtics, Duke, Carolina, Tom Brady versus Peyton Manning. It felt like for a generation, Canada versus U.S. track and field was right there as heated a rivalry, as spirited, disdain that the sprinters had for each other. 7 days after your gold, to beat them in their house meant what?
Well, I mean, listen, other than breaking the world record, it essentially, for me, it's the greatest sporting moment in our history. America had never been beaten in the Olympic Games, period. And so the fact that we lined up against them, they had a full squad, we were in their house, and we crushed them, was something that was no, but it's for real.
I know it.
No, it's something that, I mean, the fact is, Bruni, Robert, Carlton, Glenroy, and even the other substitute that was in our relay program can actually live the rest of their lives knowing that they were part of that. I mean, our coaches, I mean, all of these things all of these things, kind of meant everything. I mean, the fact is when you can go America, until the Jamaicans came along with Usain Bolt and Johan Blake and Asafa Powell, Nesta Carter, we were the team. I mean, we were the first team. Canada was the first team where when the U.S. came to line up, they kind of go, "Oh no, those guys are here again." I mean, so it was, and we just and the thing is, maybe again because of my apparent arrogance or confidence, we were feared. We were feared anywhere we went, and there was an expectation for us. There was an expectation that I had, and I put the responsibility on each of my teammates who was running each leg. Essentially, my responsibility at that time was to say, "Listen, get me the baton, so we can get the goal, so we can go have dinner and enjoy this."
Donovan, I'm the luckiest guy. I get to cover so many different sporting events. I've been fortunate enough to cover Olympics and Super Bowls and NBA championships, Stanley Cup. But I tell people that the best sporting experience you can have is being in the house for the 4x100 meter final at an Olympics. There is an energy, there is something in that stadium that is unlike anything else. When you're standing there for the anchor leg, what is that moment like in the anticipation for that handoff for the final leg?
Well, funny enough, Arash, you are probably it's you and other journalists and other people like you that need to tell the world how electrifying standing in a stadium is, and understand that I don't care what other sporting event you've ever been to in the world. And you've named a few, and all of those are iconic events and moments. But yeah, you have to be in the stadium when the 100 meter goes down or when the relay goes down, because there's no other feeling that you can compare that to. Now, I've gotten the great ability and feeling to be on both sides of that, where I am on the anchor leg waiting for a baton to get to me.
Yeah, what's that like, Donovan?
You know what? You have to understand, there's such a level of comfort, and for me, confidence, that my focus really on Bruni bringing me the stick, and when he hits the receiving mark, I take off. I mean, that's really what it is. I mean, you have to be completely focused and be completely in the moment, understanding that there's 7 other teams coming, probably speaking different languages, in a land of chaos, and you have to decipher and listen to one voice, one familiar voice, and put your hand back at the exact same time that will allow him to place that baton in your hands. So it's actually very surreal. It's very quiet. The stadium is like an abstract painting. So you're just essentially waiting to get the stick to go. On the other hand, I've been in the broadcast booth, to see, Jamaica getting the baton or the U.S. getting the baton in several games since I retired. And yeah, it's one of those feelings that, it's sad that the games are not going to occur in 2020. But I encourage everyone that whenever the games are and wherever they are, it's something that you really need to experience yourself, and definitely take your kids to go and see.
Yeah, I mean, you have a stadium of 80,000 people, deathly silent, and then the gun goes off, and the crescendo on its way is something to behold. Donovan, we've spoken a lot about Andre and Aaron Brown to a lesser extent. Look, we've seen sports evolve so much, and during this time with no sports on, they show a lot of these classic games. And when you watch different sports in different eras, you see how much they've evolved over the years and how much they've changed. In your mind, how much has track and field, but especially the 100 and 200, how much has sprinting changed from your day to today? And in what areas?
Well, obviously there are, Usain came and rewrote the record book, so that's one. The second thing is with Usain as well as other track athletes, with the advent of social media, it's popularized the sport, professionalized the sport. Hopefully, these kids today are monetizing, their opportunities. So for me, when I competed, I mean, we had to, we essentially at the end of the race, I think we had to, get the results and fax it back to, you guys here.
Right.
So, here's the results. Here's what happened, and then hope that someone calls you to discuss the race. So it's how track has evolved, and the great thing is that someone like Usain has continued to push the boundaries in cross branding.
I see some shoes back there, man. What are your favorite non-Atlantic kicks over your right shoulder?
Non-Atlanta kicks. Oh wow. Well, okay. So I have a wall with a lot of shoes.
Yeah, I see that.
And they're all from major championships or major goals. So I do have. Funny enough, I think the first shoe that Adidas made is over there. I can't see exactly where it's sitting right now. But the very first shoe, there was prototypes that Adidas did for me, just trying to try out different things. The 50-meter world record shoes there.
Okay.
Commonwealth gold is there. Pan Am gold is there. Atlanta gold is there. So essentially, all of the shoes I've ever worn in any major championships that has done a particular feat is there secured. For us all to display at some point in maybe a Hall of Fame sports memorabilia show at some point.
What is the insurance premium on that wall?
A few seven figures.
There you go. There you go. Donovan, this has been fun, man. Really appreciate you making time. I hope you're staying safe. I hope you're staying sane. And thanks for offering some insight, and thanks for a little trip through time. It's so fun to go back and talk about those days.
Well, thank you, Arash. And in these crazy times and crisis, I guess if you and also the public can allow us to give them a little bit of laughter and some stories, then I'm willing to do that anytime.
Donovan Bailey, the great Donovan Bailey. If you're a Canadian, you have to love Saturday nights in Georgia. Donovan will be the 25th anniversary next summer. Let's hope we're in Tokyo together to celebrate it. Thanks again.
Absolutely. Take care.